I don't even remember what Robert decided to call this because he didn't ask me to name it. But basically, like I said, I've become the local expert on everything being 12 volt native rather than having to use inverters and step up, step down everywhere. So decided this time around to bring my Go box and demonstrate what I've done to it and explain why. But I drop the cover. This has got just about everything you could possibly need for an emergency activation. Tug out my goodies here before I find my power cord. Which one did I stick? And of course, when you've got a million things in here, finding the right cords, well, we may do it on just battery after all. I did come prepared. Because I have a power supply and everything is hooked up to it, but I also have the secondary input here for the battery, and that's where we're going now. So, power the entire system on. Just by reaching in, start popping switches. Well, power supply is not going to come on, obviously. And that's the radios you would expect. On the back side, there is a full computer. Full wireless access point. 11-port USB charging and splitter station in case it's needed. And yet another snake because I haven't got all of this powered up. I may or may not pull out my stand for that. Actually, I may. It's getting slippery here. The 12 volt to the monitor. Yep, I may have to get the stands out. And this is just because I was too cheap to buy a monitor just for a demonstration. I have an old laptop screen there. Yeah. Which knob popped off here this time? Yeah, I'll get it back on there in a minute. But I brought both a wired and a wireless mouse with me. I don't remember where I stuck the wireless one. But with the keyboard. Which one's power? Turn that on. You should be coming on. Change plugs. And of course, it's going to embarrass me today. You have powered up. That one's Windows 10. 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's a little $200 computer box. And I said, of course, it's trying to embarrass me now, and the screen is not wanting to come on. Oh, it is finally? Well, okay, it's finally got light back there, so yeah, it is. There we go. Now it's going to boot up. But it's all literally mounted in the box in the equipment bag on the back cover. I've got a 50-foot network cable. I could plug in here, tap their network. We use this at every field day with no network attached for all of our logging computers. We just use an intranet. But it all runs on same 12-volt barrel plugs. So they're universal, just swap them between everything. So all mounts in the box. It took me, what, 5-6 minutes even wrestling with things being stupid in front of people. And the box has got lighting in it, a dimmer switch. So you've got dual speakers set up. You know, all the mics are still in the bag. I'm not going to put antennas on in here anyhow. But it's all running off the battery pack because my extension cord doesn't have a ground plug on it. So I couldn't even plug the power supply in. But I've got a power supply that will actually charge the battery and swap over automatically with just unplugging it. Well, no, it's...
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying.
But again, part of the demonstration was going to be unplugging it, so we'll just do that step first. But like I said, I am going to more accept questions and let people come up and take a look at this. I've got all of the wires are a mile long and just curled up here so this stuff can actually be spread out. But I've got a second keyboard out in the car as a folding. This has got a full-size keyboard. And if it came up, that should...
Where'd you get the case at?
The case sold at DX Engineering. They are $375 plus shipping. And you can buy a case, but it comes with the light, the 3 punch outs. You have to provide your own. But both speakers are wired in, all of the wiring inside for it. It's got a 12-volt plug on the front. It's got a secondary input. It has an input cable. On the back, I have an 8-port power pole and then the switching from battery to shore power. But it's a little 4x4 B-Link computer bolted here to the back with a Visa mount. Fits inside the cover. And part of the thing, I used to use old laptops. And my big thing was I bought the 12-volt power supplies. Well, you're still stepping up to 19 volts. This computer is 12-volt native, so there's no stepping up, stepping down, dealing with inverters. It takes a lot of the hassle out of dealing with that.
How do you get the monitors around 12?
Well, I have 3 or 4 different brands out there. The one I'm looking at right now is a Spectre. It's $89. It's about the same size as a standard desktop monitor. I'm going to have to modify it because the base isn't going to store anyway. Trying to figure out where I tucked them in here. And I have everything I need. It's just where I put it. I've got a pair of, there they are, in the equipment bag. That's actually an old laptop screen with a $30 eBay video card replacement. Super glued to the back of the thing. But I run a bookstore. I have portable book stands to actually hold it up. And it's got a 10-foot HDMI on it right now. You can actually move everything over. Somebody could be logging completely separately with the wireless keyboard and have it out of the way, or it can be put in one station all here tight like this. Trying to remember what are the other goodies that I carry in here just for parts. Oh, I have a couple of HDMI, a couple of power pole jumpers so that I can get extra distance for the battery pack. And that's actually one of the club's battery packs. I didn't bring the big one that we usually use. It's 144 amp hour in a big toolbox that I build. They weigh about 180 pounds. But, you know, that 144 amp hour we've run field day, start to finish, and never had to even look at the batteries. So, you know, like I said, I'm very big on everything being 12 volt native because I've actually got a set of alligator clips with power pole. I can throw this off the front end of my car and be operating. But you're welcome to come up and take a look at this. I will untangle wires if necessary for you to see everything, but see how I've got it mounted to the back of the box.
What's the battery chemistry that you run in here?
This one is absorbed glass mat.
Okay. Well, it's lead acid?
Yeah, lead acid.
Okay.
This is 318 amp hour.
Where do you get the computer from?
Amazon company on it is B-Link. That one is just a Celeron processor. Runs Windows 10, Windows 11, no problem whatsoever. They sell everything up to a Ryzen 9 chip in it. I paid $140 for that one with 16 gigabytes of RAM ready to go. I caught one of their sales right before Christmas. Wow. But I think it's $1,100 for the Ryzen 9. It is a full computer in that same box. But like I said, I used to talk about, you know, recycling an old laptop. It works. It does everything you need it to do, but it takes a lot more room than that little box that's dedicated to the system. And by all rights, you know, this old laptop does not have an HDMI output. I can pull that HDMI cable, plug it into the projector right here, and put that on the wall. Better yet, this will do 3 separate displays. I can put it on the projector on its own screen and a secondary screen.
Do you use a battery booster to?
Nope, that's plugged directly to the battery at 12 volts.
So is it more for comfortability, just in use of the computer, using that over like a Raspberry Pi or one of those?
I looked at Raspberry Pi forever and kept shying away from it because they keep telling me how cheap it is, and by the time I get done, it's going to cost me as much as a computer. And I said, I've got half dozen laptops that I used to use for this, and when one of them died, I literally salvaged its screen and all the parts out of it. But these computers at $200, like I said, it's a Celeron processor. It's got a 4K video card in it. It will stream Netflix 4K on an 85-inch screen. It blows my mind what that little computer will do. And they're about $200 delivered from Amazon. That one came with a 512 gig SD card, and I dropped a 512 gig SD hard drive that I had in it because it also has a bay for a second drive. But it will run any radio program that you need to run on it. And I found it so much more convenient that it's literally bolted to the box. I'm not having to figure out where the laptop's going to sit on the table. You know, I was able to put it on the outside. It's bolted to the outside rail here, so it's breathing. I'm not worried about overheating a little thing because
What's the power consumption at 12 volts?
12 volt 1 amp.
1 amp.
Actually closer to 0.5 amp. Which is why it can run on a single 12 volt feed. You know, the monitor draws next to nothing the same way. Like I said, I've got a power supply built in the box. It can be plugged in. Joke is it very seldom gets plugged in. I do everything with batteries. But I went ahead and mounted it in the box. And I'm looking at building a second one right now that I've got things figured out the way I like them and put my 7300 in another box altogether.
So when you buy this case, you get this front side?
The case comes with the whole front side. It comes with the 2 shelves. It's actually a well put together kit instead of just buying a box. It comes with the light and the dimmer switch built in. Like I said, it comes with both of these shelves. You can make adjustments for whatever it is you're putting in there. It's pre-wired for both speaker 1, speaker 2 for the first 2 radios. Headphone jacks actually shut off the outside speakers. I mean, I thought it was a little expensive when I looked at it the first time, and then I realized how much it was going to cost to engineer and make my own plate to reduce the box. They've done all of that for you. You know, they do a 4U. This is the 6U. They do have one that's a little bit shorter with single speaker in it.
So that the lamp doesn't make any noise or anything?
Nope. They've actually spec'd a lamp that does not cause a problem, which is the other thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely. We had everything running a satellite station, and this was last year, Winter Field Day, and I had just a lamp with one of those 12-volt Edison base
Yep,
bulb, absolutely quiet.
till you turn the lights on.
No, absolutely quiet. On HF, absolutely quiet, 2 meters. We're trying to operate the satellite station. UHF. It was like,
And
would it make noise there?
when I pulled up, you know, an old Cisco router, this was when my mother was in the hospital and one of her friends had changed cable companies. And you deal with electronics, here, take this. You know, it's a throwaway router, but it gives me, it's wired. This computer has a wonderful wireless card built in. The purpose is that, like I said, I've got a 50-foot cable here. I can plug in and have internet and allow everyone else in the building to tie in. You know, it's amazing. They do have open Wi-Fi here, but it's amazing how places you go, you can plug in and get internet, but you can't get Wi-Fi. It's all protected. This way, I bring my own system with me. The other thing I didn't talk about is I've got a USB GPS dongle on here. Again, running by battery and no internet, you know. You have all of your stuff for working digital and getting time set up.
It'll synchronize your time.
It synchronizes for you. But like I said, I've got a mad jumble here, but I quite literally have one power pole that's running 9 of these barrel plugs because I put it on a 10 amp fuse. It really doesn't matter. It's not going to pull the full 10 amps.
That back cover fits over there.
Yes, the back cover actually has the bag sewn into it for your mics, things like that. And I make sure that I load it so that everything's down to the bottom so that the computer and the power strip have an open space. I had nothing but a towel wrapped around the screen to keep it from scratching anything inside the front cover, just riding loose.
What's the total loaded weight without the battery?
The box itself is right around 35 pounds with everything in it. And our treasurer is not in here yet. He's the one who bought the first box. When I saw his, I had to have one. He brought his to our meeting last month, and he's got 2 small radios and a power supply, and it talks about how heavy it is, and I laughed at him. And I forget that I run a bookstore and move boxes of books all day long, so I think nothing of picking up 50 pounds. But although I brought the buggy in here to carry it, I can carry it with one handle like a suitcase because it's all bolted down, it's solid. I don't worry about swinging down sideways. But, you know, like I said, I wanted to make it a point that I came in and it was not opened up yet. It sets up in under 10 minutes. I mean, I could have it looking like a really nice station if I weren't feeling that I was being watched. But I said the same 12-volt barrel plug runs most everything. And I actually have a different computer that I bought for this. I bought an aluminum-cased Aerofara. For all practical purposes, it was the same computer, only it's only got 8 gigabytes of RAM and it's all soldered on, so it's not interchangeable. The difference with this one is it takes a size that's 1 step down, and not wanting to unplug it while I'm playing. I have a bag of adapters. Well, the good news is that all of the adapters go to the same 12 volt, or on this particular one it's a 3-pin, but I've got another bag of this. the same 12-volt barrel. So I had to step it down one setting, and it just stays on this computer now. So the barrel plug here is interchangeable out of any of the 9 cables that I've got there. I've got one extremely long power cable so that I can move the computer over if I need to. This was an addition just to come in and do the class. It's nothing but a USB. It's got 7 USB 3s and 4 USB 2 or USB 2 power only. They're all switchable. But now, somebody needs to charge their phone. I've got more than enough charging stations that are pulling off the same power supply. Because
Do you
we,
have any solar charging apparatus that
I don't have any at this time, but it's one of the next considerations.
The panels with charge control, you can probably go right into that.
Well, like I said, this is one that they found on Walmart.com, and I laughed at it because I build the big toolbox boxes. Well, it's much lighter and easier to carry. You can't use this handle. But it has the big power pole 50 amp. I used to do medical supplies and power wheelchairs. I have a whole box full of these 50 amp. I told Rocky if I'd known I was going to use this one, I'd have brought the 50 amp connector in here. It does the same thing. It's just, it looks better when you plug that big boy. But like I said, I have built more power pole jumpers from one thing to another. I've got a handful of extensions so I can make sure I pull things out. Then I've got one that I put on the end. Like I said, it's less than a foot long. Power pole it together, slap it under my hood with alligator clips. But they make fun of me. This one is a universal, which is the one that has all the parts. I buy brand new power supplies, and the first thing I do is cut the cables in half. I can still use it the old-fashioned way, but get the right side. You know, I've got a universal power supply for a computer, but, you know, went from minimal stepping up to 12 to 19 to a native 12 volt that, you know, research I've done, by the time you step from the battery to an inverter and then to run your power supply, you're losing anywhere from 25 to 40% of your battery capacity. If you're trying to operate in an actual emergency situation, that's a lot. You know, I don't say that an inverter isn't useful. Most inverters are noisy. You know, they're expensive. For small costs along the way, I've just cut that portion out. And, you know, as I said, I haven't gone to solar yet, but the step from solar is literally it plugs into the power poles at the other end. You know, it's just an easy add-on. It's not going to take a lot of adjustment. You set it up to charge 12-volt batteries, and you feed it into the battery at one end and out the other end. But any other questions?
This little box in the middle, that's just a 1 in and 2 out? Is that what that
Actually,
is?
it's a 2 in, 1 out. That is the box that if I plug the power cord in, it will run off shore
Oh,
power.
that's through your switch.
The battery power is here, and this is the power cord that comes with the box that feeds the box
Okay.
from one side. And again, there's a secondary input on the front. But with this, that's automatic switching. As soon as power goes off, it just switches over to the
That's
battery.
like a power gate thing.
Yep, it is a power gate.
like an RV or something?
And I think that one I just bought was like $38.
Really?
You know, it was just Chinese brand. I've taken my chances on China.
Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But, you know,
Get that name.
but I insisted that when I bought the first one, I bought an 8-port splitter for the power poles. And now I've got it set up that I'm literally using 2. Because I decided all this other 12 volt can run off of a single tab. I could put more on here, I can add more on, but like I said, that all runs off a 10 amp fuse, and it is fused, so if it ever does pull too much, you know, I've protected the system. But the radios are fused on their own. The lines that come in the box are fused. So, you know, I've got more fuse protection in here than I know what to do with.
We've got our solar set up at the club in Nederland, and it's 500 amp hours, 425 amp batteries. They're fused at 40 amps each. They go to a common bus.
Yeah, that,
We didn't want a place where we could draw 200 amps.
yeah, where you could run a welding machine.
Yes, so
You know,
fused.
one of my considerations right now is I'm looking at putting a mount on the side of the box so I could just actually slip this in on the side. And I'm gonna pull it off here because I've got that one tangled up. And just be able to mount this on a plate on the side. The other thing that I had worked out, I've got a plate to put on the top here, just a piece of sheet metal that I was gonna rivet in 4 points. And it's an antenna mount. Besides having a flat surface up on top, it gives me a magnetic antenna mount to just mag mount to. Since it's got 2 different 2-meter radios in it right now, being able to just slap an antenna on and not, you know, in here we cheat and use the ceiling drops and hang them upside down. But depending where you are, if you needed to set up, or you're setting up for POTA, your picnic table, you can just slap a mag mount on and know you've got it right there. And that small plate at least gives you some ground plane. But I'll actually power that back on. As if anybody wants to check their phone, you'll see that we have a radio Wi-Fi available in here. You know, and I said, that is one of the most convenient things. We do our field day various places. We used to do it at Red Cross. Well, Red Cross has their Wi-Fi that we weren't allowed to use. We have a router in the building that we set up with our stuff and can plug into the wall. I would set all my computers up for logging for field day and walk in, and all I'd do is turn them on because I had them all set to my router. I don't need internet for logging. All I need is signal from point A to point B. So I had an intranet with no outside access, and all the logging went flawlessly. But, you know, it used to get carried in a separate bag, and I said, okay, let's see. And I have more than enough room if I'm willing to work around all of the tangles inside there that everything stores inside the box. So, you know, as you saw it in the wagon, it's one box is up on the table and I've got a full radio station. And I've got a bag, actually smaller than that computer bag, with my super antenna in it that I can carry my HF antenna that small with 50 feet of cable in one bag. So it's very convenient for getting out and about. But
Very nice, Rick.
I said it's nothing overly special. It's just, you know, the thought that went into having to have a laptop. This takes a lot less room. I don't worry that something's going to happen to that screen. I have a separate screen for it. It packs in here, and this is now in and of itself ready to go.
Does somebody make a standalone video monitor that runs off 12 volts?
Actually, Spectre does a whole series of them. They have the 24-inch, which doesn't quite fit in the box, and like I said, I'd have to drop the stand off of it to store it this way. Not only is it HDMI 12 volt, when you plug it in, it's got speakers built in. I could sit here and watch television.
It's like for use in an RV or something on the wall? Nice.
You know, I actually have a 32-inch Insignia television at home. It runs on the same 12-volt barrel plug. They've gone back to putting the inverter in the televisions now. About 9 years ago, they ran out of 12-volt wall wart. It's so nice that you can plug the same barrel plug into everything. And that's when I started clipping these cables to put power poles on, because I've got a set that works on the television, which I used here as a monitor last year. It works on the wireless router, and I still got wall wart at the house that plugs everything in, and I can use it on a normal day. I went through all of Harvey on my battery bank and my television. So my television powers, I got a little box called a Mika. So I can plug 2 gigabytes at a time of hard drive in and watch all the television I want to watch. It runs on the 5-volt USB off of the television. So I was on battery power the whole time power was out. Like I said, I have a thing about 12-volt native is just so much more convenient. You can get 12 volts anywhere. My next step on this is this back charges when it's hooked to the power supply. I'm going to have to figure out what to do to go to lithium ion because you don't want it back charging. So I'm going to have to figure that step out next. But for the time being, we've got quite a few of these lead acid boxes that we've built. And power poles are the way to go. We've had a number of people using the old automotive style. Yeah, to which we had to explain, you buy a 25-foot extension. You don't know which is negative and which is positive at each end. Oh, but they're keyed. Yes, but they're not keyed to anything else.
Depends if it's a source or a load.
Well, and you know, when you plug it in and it fries your $1,000 radio, you're not happy. Power poles are color-coded and very much protective.
Hermaphroditic.
But any other questions? You know, how did I become so crazy?
Nice setup.
Like I said, decided this year that I was going to start looking for something, and when I discovered the 12-volt computers, it was, oh, I have a whole new rabbit hole to go down. I said, I've got one, actually it's in the front seat of my car right now, that was supposed to be running the slideshow in there, and Robert's program is wrong. It's also kept shutting off during the day because it times out on him.
No, it's not what, it was the power, the power socket on the wall, that was bad.
Oh,
So when you go to move it, move the cable, and it'd come back on.
okay,
His laptop was going to sleep, because it didn't have enough power.
okay, well, that explains, well, his PowerPoint wouldn't run on my computer.
Yeah.
So, not sure how that worked out. It would just, first slide come up, try to transition and fry. Just lock it to black screen. So we gave up and just went to just using his. But I was going to use the small box because it literally plugs in with a wall wart and hangs its own weight from the HDMI cable. You don't have to mess with it. You know, they weigh nothing the size of a CD. Matter of fact, I have an old Walkman CD bag that has computer, power supply, HDMI cable, and in the other pocket I have 2 wireless networks. So the only thing it doesn't have is a screen. But, you know, the homemade box for the card, because it's just a bare card you get. This card is HDMI, DVI, VGA. So, you know, it'll run off anything. Like I said, they're little $30 cards that, you know, everybody is, oh, you get the screen out and you build a box. I'm going, no, you get the screen out, you take the hinges off and you put it back together. It came with a perfect clamshell case made for it. You know, why would I want to build a wooden box? But that's all there is to it. Like I said, it's, you know, you put whatever radios you like inside, you know, whatever it is you work with. The computer is right there next to it. The other thing that's plugged in is the secondary USB for digital on the 991. So, you know, I can go digital modes right there on the screen because it's already got modem built in. Which is, you know, the whole reason that I kept having to haul computers around and said, you know, I can find something better. And like I said, my new thing is these little 12-volt boxes. They weigh literally ounces. The cabling weighs more than the computer does.
The power consumption is so low. It's just amazing.
I don't think I brought any of the wall warts. It comes with a 3-amp wall wart.
But I think the TDP on the processor is like 10 watts. Very, very
Again, that's a Celeron 4-core. It's not.
It doesn't make any RF noise.
But, you know, I like this one. Like I said, it's got dual HDMI and a USB-C output, so you can have 3 separate screens. You know, the dual HDMI is, you can go almost anywhere and hook up with HDMI now. Whereas, you know, when I put these together, because I built like a half dozen of them, you know, I bought the universal card that I could hook up with anything. It comes in handy when you're hooking up to my Dell luggable laptop, because I have a 6800. And I can run 4 screens, its native screen, an HDMI, a DVI, and a VGA. It will run one of everything, but it won't run 2 of anything.
One of the choices.
So I had multiple screens set up off of my computer, just with old leftover screens. We used to call it the orbiting command center. But like I said, it's nothing overly special. It's just thinking through what to use so that you can fit it in as little space as possible and make it do as many things as possible. And you know, it really doesn't take a whole lot longer to take down than it did to put up. It's just tucking everything back into nooks and crannies and putting it away. There won't be the feeling of people watching me. Everything except for battery. It does have a power supply in the box. Like I said, I've looked into, because you could run it for at least a short period on a lithium ion that would fit in any one of the little cubbies I still have inside. So, you know, it could be put on lithium ion.
20 amp hour, something like that size.
Yeah. You know, running everything on a 20 amp hour probably wouldn't last for very long. But, you know, if you just needed to get set up and go.
But that with a foldable solar panel and charger, that could,
Yeah. And like I said, you just change over and use the input on the 8-port and don't use the back charge, so that you don't worry about power supply doing anything to lithium ion. You're ready to go.
Well, you could throw down and get on the air in just extremely short amount of time, and while your more permanent power.
Right. Well, and again, the way that I did this, that the 8-port and the switch are separate, that's the input to the 8-port. So you plug the lithium ion in there instead, and you don't worry that anything's backing up on the lithium ion. But it's that fast, turn it back on as you plug it in and start powering up again. But I got this up high so that you can actually get back there and see what it is. If something were to come unplugged or something wasn't working, you can actually access it. I thought about tucking it inside the box instead, and the nightmare of you've already got all the wires and then trying to get your hand in amongst them. I've got that room in the case, and I tried to make use of it. Once I verified that the computer would mount to the outside, I knew what I had to work with. But like I said, I bought an Aerofara the first time, and it's a great little computer. Basically, it's the same computer, but it doesn't have Visa mount. This came with a Visa mount. Screwed it on. I had to drill out the holes. They're spaced less than 1/8 of an inch off to match the set that comes in the case. So drilled each one out for a bigger screw, and they fit fine. But you know, it's literally held on just by 2 screws there, and you know, it's not going anywhere. Like I said, I've got a pretty heavy HDMI cable in here, and yeah, I've got, I think that was only a 3-foot network cable that I brought out to plug in, but in my BAGO connectors, there's at least a 25-foot network cable. So I plug into the wall and stretch it over, like I said, give the whole room internet, because you never know where you're going to be set up. But like I I said, everything now is everyone wants to be able to do WinLink. You know, you need the computer to do it. Like I said, if you can get out on the internet, you can get a whole lot done quickly. If you have to do it by radio, it's all hooked up the same way.
They even have the routers though that you can get, plug in your USB to your cell phone and hotspot from your cell phone.
Yeah.
For that to provide internet if your cell phone has.
Well, and
Signal.
again, I can turn the hotspot on and that little computer will pick it up with no problem. But if you're working in an emergency situation, most of the time, internet is not your friend. You know, cell phones are not your friend.
Unless you're lucky enough to have like a Starlink or something like that.
Right.
You could provide multiple people with.
Well, and like I said, you know, the internet would be, you know, where you're set up. You know, if they have a wired, you can get a wireless access because I control the password on this. You know, you're not messing with their system. You're just tapping in to their wired internet. And I said, it's amazing how many places you can go, and they don't care that you plug in, but they're not going to give you that wireless password. But any other questions? I'll put it together and let you see how heavy it was. Okay, then I won't put it back together yet. Yeah, the box around that card is the glass panel from my phone. Box was the right size.
You can get something they make from the West Mountain.
West Mountain.
Would they actually, it won't back charge, plus you have solar input.
Actually, I saw the back charge as a bonus because I had so many lead acid batteries. But as I'm thinking for the future proofing, like I said, literally take that step out and you plug the lithium ion into the 8-port and not worry about it.
How much box space do you have? Because you could probably squeeze it in there if you went to lithium ion.
I could probably put anywhere from 20 to 60 amp hours of lithium ion inside the box. I mean, actually, the tighter it fits, the better for me. Yeah, I don't want it vibrating if I can help it. But I've got plenty of room on this side where I tuck this router in. It's just, my antenna feeds from the radios out are 5/8 inch cable. They're monsters, so they're twisted and torqued in there. But it was, why spend all the money on a radio and then put cheap small cable inside? Go and tuck in there. And of course,
Real cool, man.
Thank you, Rick.
yep. I said, somebody had asked how heavy it was, so I'm going to pack it in here and you'll be